Well, hi, ladies. I'm Robin Zimmerman, and welcome to the pre-show, if you will, before our author series begins promptly at 5 o'clock. You are in for a treat once again. We have Dianna Rostad. She has written a book that is very powerful. It is called You Belong Here Now. It's set in Montana in 1925. And it has to do with three orphans that travel together to the West and their stories and how they survive, how they show resilience. And so we're excited to meet her in just a moment at 5 o'clock. But let's bring in Janet Porter, my co-host, my colleague. This is our 17th edition for the Women's Association of Hilton Head Islands author series. Hey, Janet.
You'd think by now we really would have it down pat, wouldn't you, Robin?
I know. And, it's so funny because I think we've told everyone that we still have our rehearsals. We still have our debrief. So we always want to improve and make sure that we're bringing the best possible product to our ladies.
Yes. Yeah. And every single debrief, we think about something else. It may not be visible to all of the people joining us today, but every time we think about something we want to do a little bit different or a little bit better, or you guys tell me to fix my hair or whatever.
Right. Well, you usually, in this like 10 minutes before we start officially at 5 o'clock, we've done polling. And then last time you and I just talked, which I think was, I don't know. You talk about your life, I talk about my life, but we're going to kind of bring it together and we're going to ask you some questions. We want you to be involved. We want you to participate, and we are going to have a poll, right, Janet?
Right. Yeah, when we really set this up, we know it's a webinar where we can't see the participants, but we wanted, or everyone, you don't see everybody on camera because the first one we had like 100 people attend. That wouldn't be feasible, but we wanted always to create a mechanism for those who are listening to us to talk to us, for us to hear from them. And so we're really going to encourage you to again today, as we have before, to chat in questions. At both, you could do that right now or do that during the webinar with Dianna, because we get a lot of great questions from the audience.
Yeah, we do. We get questions, we get great comments, we get suggestions for books that folks want us to read. So we'll get to that in just a second. But you have had a very special 50th high school reunion.
Well, now everybody knows my age. People thought I was in my 50s still now, Robin. And I didn't graduate from high school at the age of 8. So yes, I had my 50th high school reunion. It was what fun it was to see everyone, and it was 180 people in a banquet hall, unmasked in Michigan. And lo and behold, I came back and immediately was tested for COVID. And because I've had all my vaccines and my booster, I was safe. And so it was a wonderful event, and I was happy to come back healthy.
Oh, that's great. Well, I've been busy. I've just got back from Greenville. Lynn and I moved from Greenville about 3 years ago, and just visited with family and did some, I'm still doing some part-time work. So that was kind of fun. Excited. Tomorrow night, Lynn and I are going to see Kinky Boots. So
I saw it on Broadway years ago, and I took my sister to it in Raleigh, and everybody loves it. It's so high-spirited.
And I have talked to some ladies who have seen it here at the Art Center, and they say it's absolutely amazing, just like Mamma Mia. Mamma Mia was, and I didn't think I was a Mamma Mia fan, but oh my goodness, it was phenomenal.
Yes.
So I'm so excited. I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah. I'm actually thinking, even though I've seen it twice, I'm thinking about buying tickets to go here because I've heard so many great reviews.
Yes. And then the neat thing about Wahi is Maureen Firth does she leads an interest group called Backstage Tour. So on Monday, we actually have a board and council meeting, but after that, I'm going to scoot down to the theater and participate in the backstage tour. So I've done it before, but I still love going behind the scenes and seeing what it's all about. So that'll be fun too.
Well, I haven't done it before, but I'm going also on Monday.
Are you going on Monday?
I am. I'm registered. Yeah.
Okay, perfect. Yeah. Well, I'll see you there.
Yeah.
All right. Do we want to jump into our first poll?
Well, before that, Robin, I thought we might mention a little bit, since we met last, we had the Wahi luncheon.
Yes, we sure did.
wasn't that a wonderful event?
It was, at the Honeyhorn Pavilion there, the Coastal Discovery Museum. The weather was perfect. It was, the first time that we've gotten together since April of last year with everyone. The food was good. We had a great speaker with Debbie Lyons, and it was just a perfect day. It was one, and I'm very excited about our next event, which Betty, I think, will touch on, which is on December the 9th. And that's the first time we will actually be in a hotel as Sonesta. And we're continuing our theme of resilience, and it'll be resilience of the arts. So I'm really looking forward to that as well. So we have the quarterly luncheons, which I believe is set up by our bylaws. And of course, it's been difficult during COVID, but we've done our best to make it work.
Yeah, yeah. It was, I just thought it was spectacular. I haven't been to that many quarterly lunches because I wasn't that active actually before COVID, but I have been over the years occasionally to them. I used to work and travel and be gone, but all the ones I've been to, it was my favorite WAHI luncheon so far. I just thought it was really special.
Yes. Well, I liked, Debbie, talked about her journey and, some of the bumps in the road and challenges that she has had with her divorce and children and so forth. And I liked how she kind of moved through the audience and really wanted to be engaging. So that was a lot of fun. It was great, of course, to hear from Betty, our president, and just be with friends and make new friends. That's the beauty of WAHI. It's the interest groups. It's having women be together that truly care about each other and have like interests, and really some very successful women. I mean, big career women. We've got some amazing ladies in WAHI.
Yes, yes. So let's get to our poll now. You want to do that, Robin?
Sure. So this is our polling question, ladies. It is, and again, we'll start promptly at 5 o'clock with our author. This is our pre-program. What type of books would you like us to schedule in the future? We've predominantly done historical fiction, but let's take a look at the variety, the various genres of books and authors that we could bring onto our onto our author series. So these are the choices. Do you like biographies, memoirs, nonfiction, fiction, then back to the historical fiction, mysteries? I think we're looking forward to perhaps a mystery writer in the upcoming months. And then what about science fiction? So ladies, just take a minute. Again, we'll start promptly at 5 o'clock with our esteemed author, Dianna Rostad, but go ahead and just hover and click one of those boxes and we'll get kind of a feel of what you prefer as we move forward with the author series. So Janet, what are we seeing, dear?
Well, I'm still waiting for a lot of people to respond, but I have to tell you, Bobby Helbig, who's our fabulous co-chair, who schedules the authors, and I were both anxious to get feedback on this to make sure that we were, really celebrating the wealth of interest of our members. So the one thing this poll establishes is that no one wants science fiction, which we haven't booked. As before, when we did this poll, I want to say maybe a year ago, actually. And what we learned then is similar to what we're learning now, that the number one choice is historical fiction. But surprisingly, the second most common answer is mysteries. And we haven't really booked mysteries. And there's some terrific mystery authors we could book. And then the third most popular is biography. So history, historical fiction, mystery, and then biography. So I thank you everyone for participating, because Bobby and I will make a note of this, and we'll try to make sure that we book people in accordance with your wishes.
Yeah, that's fantastic. All right. So we also like to get your feedback, and Janet, you could take the poll down. We like to get your feedback on recommendations for either authors or books that you've read, a friend has read, a neighbor. So just go to that chat icon at the bottom of your laptop or top if you've got an iPad, and just give us some recommendations on books either you're reading now, or someone has told you you've got to read this, or maybe a book that one of your book clubs is reading. So just use that chat button and let us know. So Janet, what are you reading these days?
Well, I'm reading I know this wouldn't surprise you, I'm reading a bunch of different things, but one of the books I read recently, and was not one of our choices today in terms of genre, was an adventure book about two women. And Eric Severide, who many people will remember, was the first person ever to canoe with a friend, two guys, canoed from Minneapolis, Minnesota, all the way up through the western part of the state, all the way up through Canada to Hudson Bay. And he did that in the 1930s and wrote a famous book on the topic. And
Wow.
women had never done it. And so these two young college students from St. Olaf College, just graduated, decided that after graduation, they were going to be the first women ever to do the Eric Severide trip. Some men had done it, but it had never been done. And it's the story of these two women and a dog, if you're interested in dogs, and a dog who do this, you know, tortuous trick, avoiding the polar bears and all that kind of stuff. So it's called Hudson Bay Bound.
Okay.
Hudson Bay Bound. And Nancy will chat that in for you. And you know, I would recommend that in a minute. It made me want to go see the polar bears.
Well, Janet, before you said Hudson Bay Bound and started talking about it, you said you're reading lots of things. Are you telling me that you read more than one book at a time?
Well, what happens is I start a big book, like I'm reading Peril by Bob Woodward, and then I have to read stuff for, you know, for one of my many assignments. I have book groups and stuff. So then I get diverted. So then I go back to it. So yes, I don't intentionally read books, a lot of books at one time, but I have books I start and then I have to get diverted for assignments, like reading, like enjoying this book by Dianna Rostad.
Right. You know what I think would be fun as a poll next time is to ask our ladies, what time of the day do you read? Do you read first thing in the morning? Before you go to bed at night? Maybe right after lunch or late afternoon? I think that'd be kind of fun to ask everyone kind of what time of the day is your quiet time? Is your time to nestle in with a book?
Robin, you know, I've told you that if I didn't have things I had to get out of bed for, like women in philanthropy meetings or WAHI meetings or whatever, that I would stay in bed and read all day. So one of the options of time of day needs to be time of day, all day, all day long.
Okay, so
anyway, it's been great to see you,
Robin.
I'll see you in a few minutes.
Bye, Janet. It is at 5 o'clock on the dot. So ladies, welcome to the Women's Association Hilton Head Islands author series for 2021. This is your October edition, and we are so excited to introduce to you a new author. Her name is Dianna Rostad, and she has written a book called You Belong Here Now. It's set in Montana in 1925. It's a profound and powerful story. You will immediately, once you start reading, just be grabbed, and it was, again, one of those books you cannot put down. We're going to introduce you to her in just a moment, but I do want to remind you that this is a webinar, so you can see us, we can't see you. Please use that chat button. Nancy Fish is our technical genius. You can chat in your questions, your comments, or whatever. But I'd like to bring in Janet, who is now Janet Porter, who is my colleague and who will be actually doing the interview. But as I do that, I would like to read two quotes from two reviewers. They are New York Times best-selling authors. The first one is William Kent Kruger, and he says, set against the harsh backdrop of Western Montana, You Belong Here Now is a novel as straightforward and powerful as the characters who populate it. I love this book, and I guarantee you won't find a finer debut work anywhere. And the other quote is, You Belong Here Now distills the essence of the American spirit in this uplifting story, perfect for book clubs looking to discuss the true meaning of family. And that was by Kathleen Grissom. So, hey, Janet, and I'll sign off and go for it. And nice to have you with us, Dianna.
Thank you, Robin. I want to say, I love that quote also from William Kent Kruger. He's one of my favorite authors. If you don't know, he's written some books that you would, you know, have recognized, like Ordinary Grace. He's also read 18 books in a series called featuring someone named Cork O'Connor. And I've read all 18 of those. So he's one of my favorite authors. So I thought that was a great compliment he was giving you, Dianna. Before we get to Dianna, let me just tell you a little bit about her background. Diana's parents and extended family came from the ranches of Montana and the farms of Arkansas. She is proud to say that she raised 3 kind human beings. Those are her children. And when they began to test their wings, she took to writing with a passion completing Southern Methodist University's Writers Path program in 2001. She's actually from the Pacific Northwest, and she loves the discovery and researching of people and places where her stories and novels are set. And we're going to talk not just today about the current book that we're talking about, You Belong Here Now, but about what her next writing project is. She's traveled extensively to pursue to pursue artifacts of our shared history and breathe life, truth, and hope into her stories. She now lives in Florida, and she continues to write big-hearted novels for wide audiences. And I have to say, Dianna, I love that word heart, because I just was describing your book to someone the other day, and I said your book had heart. So we'll talk more about how that happens. So I'm thrilled you're joining us today to talk about your book, You Belong Here Now.
Well, thank you so much for having me. I'm thrilled to be here. Hello,
well,
everyone out there.
I saw you when we talked earlier this week. I told you that I loved your novel and that you are a beautiful writer, and that you need to consider me a fan. So I need to be on your fan list. So, I think we've talked about the fact that the theme for Wahi's year, which is picked by our president, in this case, Betty Hamilton, is resilience. Yeah. And what we love so much about, I just was stopping Bobby's video. And what we love so much about your book is that it really fits terrific right into that theme. But you also have had to demonstrate resilience both as an empty nester and with the loss of your daughter. So tell me about your journey of transforming yourself as a writer and as a mother because you've really demonstrated a lot of resilience yourself.
Yeah. Oh, sure. When my kids began to get to that middle school, high school age, I needed more. It wasn't enough for me to just raise my kids, and I love them to death, but I'm a very industrious person, and so I wanted something to do. And so my husband at the time recommended that I start writing, and I had already been thinking about it. So that worked perfectly. And so I dove right in. I went to all the conferences I could go to. I got Publishers Marketplace and just studied all the deals that got sold every day. I went to the creative writing program. And so I went off on this journey to become a writer. And, unfortunately, somewhere along the line there, I did get an agent, which was amazing, Marley Brusoff. But shortly after that, I was told that my daughter had a very aggressive form of cancer, and she wasn't probably going to make it. And so during the rewriting with my agent, the amazing thing is, even though my daughter was sick, she was helping me with this book. I'd ask her to read a chapter, the first pages. We talked about the ending, and she really was one of my greatest readers. And she was a terrific reader in her lifetime too. And so, and I sometimes suspect that, had she lived, she would have probably been, scribbling like her mother at some point too. So, because she was just that much in love with writing. And she's actually Nara in the book. She was the inspiration for Nara, that brisk, tough, natural born leader. Nara in the book is all about the rules. And Jessica was all about the rules. She loved them so much, she went into HR. So that was her specialty in college, was business with the emphasis on human resources. And so she went into that. And I was just so proud of her. And, she passed away in 2018. And then I sold my book a year later. But having this big project, having to get it out to the, get it through publishing, get it through, production, really helped keep me focused during a really, awful time. But, it was beautiful in a way, because this book she was so involved with it, and she was and some of it is based on her, that, ushering it into the world really kept me connected with her in a really beautiful way. So.
And she would have been so proud of how it's done.
Yes. Yeah.
And how you've done. So you weren't writing extensively until your 40s, is that right?
That's right. Yeah, I was a reader, but I had been in business, and then I stayed home with my kids. And so I was kind of, I did a lot of things, but I always loved to read. always. So
So you're one of those people that reinvented herself.
absolutely.
Kind of like a midlife crisis. You reinvented yourself.
Exactly, because my ex-husband, he traveled so much that I couldn't possibly take a job anywhere. We were always, he'd possibly get transferred to another city, and so this career, and that's probably one of the reasons he recommended it, was really good because it was portable. I could just do it anywhere. So,
Right. And were your friends and family members surprised when you announced you'd sold a book, or did they know you'd all been, laboring over this for years and years?
well, the funny thing about that is, people throughout the years would ask me, well, so because I'd been writing for 14 years by the time I, got this book out into the world, and, 12 years by the time I got an agent. And so often, during this long journey, people would say, so are you done with that book yet? And I'd be like,
Yeah.
almost, And then the other question I would get is, so when can I buy your book? And I'd say soon, So you really have to have kind of dragon scales to get through that, that phase of not being published, not reaching that point of success yet. Like just being able to write a book, of course, is quite an achievement. But I can tell you that getting published by the Big Five is just incredible. It really is, and it's tough to do. And for anybody out there who's looking to do it, I'll say is just resilience. Keep going, keep going. Have faith in yourself.
Well, talk about that process of getting an agent before you've sold a book. How do you figure that out?
Well, I stalked her. I'm just,
well,
I
stalking.
kind of did.
Okay.
Marley Rusoff is my agent, and we sometimes laugh about that. Okay, so I would get on Publishers Marketplace, and this is basically the clearinghouse for every deal that gets bought and sold by what agent to what editor. And so I knew she was my top agent. She was successful. She was selling the kind of books that I write. So I put a Google alert on her because she's very tough to get a hold of. She's very successful. And, at that level, they have to sort of, filter out because they can't handle you know what I mean? So I had her on a Google alert. So I discovered that she was going to this small writing place, this little writing mecca in Minneapolis. And so I thought, well, that's weird. Okay, so I'm going to go there and pitch to her. And I did. And it turns out that was her old bookstore. She grew, she has an amazing journey in the book industry, I can tell you. And she started out as the daughter of a bookbinder. And one of the reasons she loved Montana and she agreed to represent the book is because she loves Montana, and she grew up binding these books for her dad in cowhide for the Montana Historical Society. And so, it's just kind of an interesting thing, how that all came about. But yeah, I mean, I just had to be very, ingenious about how I found people and figured out where they were going to be, and, yeah. So
what we've learned is that stalking is good.
yes.
And what we've learned is that if you set your book in a setting that the person you're stalking loves, that really helps.
It truly does.
And you didn't know that she loved Montana when you,
wow. I really didn't. Mm-mm.
It was kismet. It was meant to be.
Who would know? But, it's just those things, because I originally pitched to her a Lord Byron book, because I have another book that I wrote, but, it was biographical fiction at that time, the industry loves to at times proclaim, whole, genres dead. So at the time they said, well, biographical fiction is dead. And so I'm like, oh, well, I had this orphan train idea. So I just said, you know what? I'm going to just start working on that, and I'll pitch it to Marley again and see what she thinks. So,
wow. So let's not keep our audience waiting any longer. First of all, I just want to say, please chat in any questions you have. I'm looking at the chat function regularly, and if you have any questions as we talk, Dianna knows that she also wants to hear from the audience. So please let us know what your questions are. But most of the people probably haven't read You Belong Here Now, because we kind of use this to promote books as opposed to discuss books people have already read. So it's set in Montana in 1925. So what inspired you to choose this time frame of 1925, this location, and then kind of this topic, which is the orphan trains?
Well, back in 2006, I came across this article on CNN, and it was about the orphan train, which I knew nothing about. And I was like, whoa, I didn't know anything about this. Was I not listening in school? Or, I was just fascinated. And so, I got to researching it, and I saw all of these amazing photos of, kids in, early 20th century on trains and all lined up on a platform. And they all had this look of hope and determination. And I remembered that look from a group of kids that I used to work with in my early 20s after the riots in South Central Los Angeles in the 90s. You see, I used to have a caseload of youthful offenders, and it was basically my job to get them a job. And when they came to me in the youth authority, they had that same look of hope and determination. They knew they'd done terrible things, they'd committed awful crimes, but they knew that they could move on and that they could do better things. These kids all had the same backgrounds as the kids on these trains, a mother missing, father in jail, raised by an auntie or a grandmother, on the streets in gangs. And so I knew that population. And so when I saw those pictures of the kids on those trains, I felt like I was the right person to tell their story, but I didn't know where to set it. And so my dad comes to Christmas one year, and he brings all of these amazing photos, which I can show you in just a minute, of, the family ranches and people in booths. It just broke open this whole wide world where I could see my characters inside. And so right then and there, I decided to set it in Montana. And of course, my dad was thrilled, and he was so helpful. My aunts were so helpful. A lot of the songs in the book are, songs that my grandfather sang. The old legends and lore come from my family, and a lot of the characters are based on family members. So yeah, it's been kind of a family project. Yeah.
Let's get to your photos, because you have some great photos that illustrate the time frame of the book.
Okay, here we go. So here's my grandfather's ranch house. And let's see. Let me try to click through these babies. Bear with me. Let's see. Okay. Okay, there we go. Sorry. And this is my father. He's in these big giant pair of boots. I don't know if you can see this. And there's chickens all around, and he's in overalls. And so, in the book, there's a lot of boots in the book, and there's a reason for that. And I asked my dad about it. I said, Dad, what's up with all these boots? And he said, it's gumbo mud. He said, the farther you walk, the taller you got. So here's my grandfather and his brother. They're probably going to church. They're all cleaned up. And then look at this beautiful picture of these little girls, and, the ones in boots, and just really, really cool pictures. And here's my book club kit. I just wanted to tell you guys that I love book clubs, and I will come and Zoom into your book club. All you have to do is get on my website, and a lot of the materials you see here in this picture are available on my website, and there's a place to contact me to arrange a Zoom for my book club. So yeah, that is that.
And Dianna, right now we're so fortunate. Nancy, who everyone knows, Nancy Fish, who's terrific, who monitors our chat. She'll chat in your website number, but you have a great website.
Yeah.
And people can order the whole kit of your book group kit on your website. So talk about the kit as opposed to just buying your book through Amazon. Talk about that.
Okay, so most of the materials on the kit are available for download, like the glossy behind the book with all the pictures of, Montana and the orphan trains, and a little bit of history about the orphan trains and how they came to be. Why did we have all those homeless kids on the street? There's a really cool story behind that. And, you can see that on my YouTube videos, which book clubs can get access to, and on the Behind the Book. And then I also have a beautiful glossy of the questions. And then anybody who wants those recipe cards, just email me, contact me through my website, which is diannarostad.com. Easy to remember. It's just my author name. And I'll send you some materials.
Yeah, terrific. So talk about, what your writing schedule is. So you talk about having, you demonstrated incredible grit, sticking with it all this time. to get your first novel out. But talk about what your writing schedule is.
Well, right now I'm in the throes of, promoting my first novel. And so I don't have a writing schedule at the moment. But when I do, and when I'm writing, I usually write in the morning. And my sort of method is that before I start to write a book and sit down, I will write a very long outline, like 12 pages, turn by turn instructions, so that when I put my butt in that chair, I know exactly what I'm going to do. And it helps me break apart, the two very distinct parts of storytelling. One of them is, what is the story going to be? And, how are the highs and the lows of the story? Well, that's my outline. What are my characters going to be? And so then when I sit down and I have that roadmap, I can, focus on atmosphere and what did things smell and look like, and what is the tension and the emotions and the characters, and just the beautiful craft of writing. So for me, it helps take apart those two things. And generally I do that in the morning because I don't know, some people are night owls, but I'm not. I'm up in the morning with the light. So
let's talk about without giving away. I don't like it when I go to an author event and the author tells the whole story, because then I'm like, well, I don't need to read the book now. So we don't want to do that. But I want to, at least give people some sense of, the main characters in the book, and give them some idea of the setting. So talk about, you mentioned that the orphan train is part of it. So talk about how you crafted the characters who are from the orphan train, and then the characters where they end up.
Yeah, I learned early on, what my characters were going to be, what their backgrounds were going to be, and what were their issues, and how did they become homeless. And I knew they were going to get on a train, and I knew they were going to end up somewhere, and I knew that whoever was going to be at the end of the line was not going to want them. They were going to be, no, thank you. And so I'll give you just a brief tidbit about the book, and it won't blow any plot lines, but essentially, my book takes place in 1925 Montana, and the story begins when these three brave kids from New York get on this orphan train. You've got a tiny girl who won't talk, an Irish boy who lost his entire family to Spanish flu, and a dangerous boy from Hell's Kitchen. And so these kids get on the train, and they get going, and mysteriously, I won't say how, they end up on a cattle ranch in Montana with Nara. And Nara is, she's had to scrub away every bit of her femininity to rise up in that male-dominated world. She really wants to run her father's very large cattle operation, and he doesn't think that anybody's going to listen to a woman in 1925 Montana. And so, she walks like a man, talks like a man, but she sees these kids and she's like, oh, I don't want anything to do with them. I don't want to get caught in the kitchen wiping noses and making sandwiches. So she works them without mercy. And, but, they don't end up running off like she wants them to. And it surprises her, they buck up and show a lot of spirit. And so, when they discover something startling about one of the orphans, the family sort of comes together and they do the unthinkable in order to save those kids.
Yes, yes. And one of the things about not only is Nara a key character in the book, but her parents who own the cattle ranch are really key characters. So it's kind of these six main characters, the three orphans, and then the three, people from Montana who take them in. But your book has so much heart, as I said before. There's a real soul to your book. I told you, that I consider myself a fan, and to put me on your fan list. That the next time your next book comes out, there can be a quote from me, even though nobody will know my name, not like William Kent Kruger.
Well, I will love that. That would be awesome.
So talk about how you are able to imbue such heart in a book.
Well, I think, as I said, a lot of these characters are based on my family members, and I really loved these characters. So, Papa is sort of an amalgamation of my dad and my grandfather. Mama is a lot like me. She's a lot like my mother. Nara was based on my daughter. Charles in the book was based on my son, who was, he was a fierce protector of his siblings, but tender on the inside. And though he doesn't go to the extent that Charles does in the book, Yeah, so just a lot of folks in here are based on my family members, and it was so hard to be hard on them because when you're writing a book, you have to make your character suffer. And I was like, I don't want to, So yeah, but these are people I knew well. I know how they talk, how they think, this part of the world, and so it was just, I mean, an absolute joy to write these characters into the book, and I'm so proud of them. They're my family in essence. So.
So even though you've written about your family and you said you know how they write and walk and talk, you also did a lot of research for the book because you didn't really know Montana in 1925. So talk about that research you did.
Yeah. So, it began with my family's photos, really. And, talking to my dad and, my family members who'd been there, and just lots of on-site research, going to the Montana Historical Society. They had other museums out there in this area of the world around Bull Mountain. I chose Bull Mountain because it was an old stop on the railroad, but it was also close enough to where my grandmother grew up in Roundup. And so I thought, well, this is perfect. And then, from there, I discovered all these amazing creatures that were there, the wild horses. That was actually something, because it's important to me that all the flora, the fauna, everything that was there in that period in time is there in my book, because I love nature. And so all of my books, you'll always get an immersive landscape from me. You'll really feel like you're there. In my book, the wind is actually a character in my book because it's one of the biggest characteristics of that part of the world is that cold northern wind, and I can tell you, and I bandy this around in the book about chapped butts, but I can tell you I have one. This is a serious thing.
You say that again. You have what?
I bandy it about in the book about chapped butts, and if you read it, you'll see Papa laughs about, hey, winter's coming, you're gonna something about a chapped butt, and I had one when I'm telling you, boy. It's the air out there in the winter just desiccates you. I mean, it's so dry. So the wind was a really big player in that landscape. And so in my book, it takes on a character role. And so I really had fun doing that.
Well, it's interesting you to say that because I think about in reading the book is not only does the book have heart, it really places you there.
Yeah.
Through your beautiful language and writing. You really did feel when they were out, tracing down the ponies or whatever, that you really did feel like you were there on a pony,
Yeah.
So
I know. Yeah, I know the high desert well. I grew up in it, and it has a character all itself. Just everything. It just, yeah. And so when I was doing my on-site research, I just, I went out there, I walked in the grass, I sniffed the air. It was, I really get into the landscape part of it. That's part of my research, and I just love to do it anyway. So there you go.
So you also wrote this during COVID.
Well,
partly,
I was
right. Or were you done with it by the time you got to COVID?
Well, not quite. Here's the thing. My book was in production at HarperCollins during COVID. And so what that means is that the final edits were being put on the book. And, we were doing things like cover and title and things of that nature. So I think, it was interesting because, we were locked down. And so it did give me that extra time to just really kind of dig into some of those edits and really learn the process of how does a big publisher put you through this, process. And so it gave me that ability to just really hone in on it. And it's really fascinating. It's still mysterious to me. Someday I want to go knock on the door of HarperCollins and say, hey, can I come in? I just want to know what you guys are doing behind all the, So, but they have, yeah, it's great. But one of the things that affected me during COVID, and it still does, is that, a lot of these, and I'll show you this, a lot of my most amazing blurbs did not end up on the book. So
really,
I often give this out because what happened was, the print jobs had to be pushed up so aggressively. And so, you're always waiting for your book to be read and get those blurbs on the book. And so a lot of them didn't, like William Kent Kruger, Kathleen Grissom, a lot of those great blurbs did not end up on the book.
So how does that work? Explain how that works. So you write the book, And then does your agent or does HarperCollins send books out to people like William Kent Kruger for comment? Because we all see that Sarah Paretsky has commented on someone else's book. So
Yeah.
how does that process all work?
Everybody just pitches in to get those blurbs. My editor pitched in, my agent pitched in. I did a lot of the work. In fact, I was having my website built, and Carol Fitzgerald, who built my website, knew William Kent Kruger, and I was telling her, "Hey, I want a website just like his," and that's how I found her, because I'm a fan of William Kent Kruger. We have that in common. So I'm actually reading Thunder Bay right now.
Oh, are you?
Yeah, because I love Henry so much. He's my favorite character. And I've read all the others, Ordinary Grace and This Tender Land, which This Tender Land is really, really very similar to my book, that journey that the kids go on. And so and he and I kind of people our books the very same way, and we have a very similar bent, I think. And so I knew he would love this book, and so I found a way to get it to him, and he was so wonderful. I cannot tell you, he's just the kindest man you've ever met. And he just said some amazing things. When I got that email from him with his review, I just about fell out of my chair, because of course I'm his biggest fan. So
Yeah,
that was
but
amazing.
you can tell Dianna that you're a hustler.
Yes.
I mean, the fact that you wanted him to do a review and you found out how to get to him, and that's what
Yep.
it takes, huh?
I know, you have to get crafty. You have to not, because everybody will say, "Oh, he'll never read your book." And I'm like, "But yeah, I think he'll love it." And so I found a way, and you just have to keep trying, not let people tell you that you can't do something. And it's about that resilience you're talking about. Because it's really easy in this industry to just go, "Okay, I guess, yeah, I can't do that. You're right." And I just won't accept it. I'm always aiming at the fences, as I like to say. So, and I always will.
Well, it's interesting you should say that, because many in the audience may recall we did a book earlier this year called Bloodlines by Neville Frankel. And Neville happens to be the husband of a friend of mine in Boston. And I loved his book. I think it's kind of, I described it as the Gone with the Wind of South Africa. I mean, it's this big historical, multi-generational melodrama under the background of apartheid, just like Gone with the Wind is, really set in the time frame of the Civil War. And I love the book, and every book group I'm in, I have everybody read it and everyone loves it. And he can't get his book published. He is a self-published.
What?
And I think he doesn't have that hustle that you have, and I'm going to figure this out and I'm going to navigate this.
Well, I would love it if you'd send me the link to that book, and I'd love to read it. My goodness, that sounds good. Woo.
I will do that. It's really, trust me, you'll love this book. It's a book like your book does too. But I love books that stick with you. I read your book a while ago, and I read constantly. So I literally, I can be 3 weeks ago, people say, "Tell me the title of that book." And I'm like, I don't really remember the title, but everything, about your books has stuck with me.
Oh, thank you so much.
So, and I think it's that, and I've thought about why that is. And I do think it's when a book kind of does have heart and soul and really touches you. Or you also, I think, really remember books that have totally surprise endings sometimes. I mean, there are different reasons that books stick with you.
Yeah, I think, books that don't have a strong message and a strong theming, they're like people without a soul, and
Yes.
so I'm always going to craft a book that has some bigger, thing going on in it. And in my book, obviously, I talk about belonging and finding your place and, justice and things like this. But yeah, I totally agree with you. When I read a book and it has that soul to it, it really sticks with you.
It's so interesting you should say that about belonging, because I remember a speaker I heard like 25 years ago, and he talked about how he was talking about what's important in a work environment. And he said, what's important in a work environment is the same thing that was important to you in kindergarten, that someone comes up to you, takes your hand and says, "You want to go to lunch with me?" And then you instantly have a feeling of belonging. It's what you learn in kindergarten, and employers need to grab people's hands from the minute they walk in the door and give them that sense of belonging. And I've really grown to appreciate how much in life, if you make people feel like they belong,
Yes.
that it really makes a difference. And your book really is about belonging, because the kids are desperate to belong.
Yeah. They are desperate. And, everybody in the book is desperate to belong. Jim, my, Native American ranch hand,
Oh, yeah.
he's desperate to find a place out in that landscape. And, Nara, who wants to do something, very original in 1925, she wants to belong. And,
Mhm.
even those wild horses, they want to belong too. They want a place to roam. They don't want to be wiped out from the face of the earth. And so, and, poor Patrick, who's, back then that was the big wave of immigration was, the Irish. And so, the response to that was, oh, they're lazy. And, they called him terrible names. And so he just wants people to realize he's out there to work and pull his weight. And so, yeah, he wants to belong too. So everybody in that book really wants to belong somewhere.
So Dianna, did you start with thinking that's what this book is really about, and then weave that in, or did it evolve over time as you got to chapter 8 or something, you thought this is what this book's about? How does that happen?
That's an interesting process because, it starts with that one character, like Charles. Charles was always my main character. And I knew that he desperately wanted to belong. I knew those kids, they lived on the streets, they just wanted to be a part of something. And when Charles gets to Montana in the book and he steps up onto the porch, it's his first day at the ranch, and he sees this big old long line of boots, and he takes his boots off and puts them in that line of boots, and he finally feels like he's a part of something. That's, I think, it's sort of for me as a writer, that feeling evolves and it sort of washes over you, and it permeates all the other characters that are speaking to you in my head, kind of thing. And it really it's something that you get through refinement and more edits, but you get there when you're writing a book. And it takes time because, I knew what I wanted to say about the Irish and, hey, it wasn't too long ago, it was your grandparents, that were being spit on and that kind of thing. And so there's all kinds of things I wanted to say. And so, yeah, it just culminated at,
In a great book. It culminated in a great book.
thank you.
So I know you're working on another book or books now. So talk a little bit about the idea is that's fomenting in your head now and that's turning itself onto the written page.
Yeah, so I've got this young girl in 1900 San Francisco, and she's living with her very wealthy and very stifling and overprotective family. She's handicapped. And she's an orphan too. I love orphans. There's just something amazing about them. And it's probably from working with those kids in South Central that gave me that real appreciation and love. But anyway, she has this famous mountain man father, a real guy, this William Drannon, whom I have a biography of him, and he's just so iconic. And he wrote this book in 1900, and it's called 31 years in the mountains and fighting Indians, which I don't like the fighting Indians, but this was real history, right? And he's sort of sitting in this, they've got a picture of him in this book, and he's sitting there in a big buffalo coat, and he's just iconic. And so when I opened up that book, I knew he had to make his way into one of my stories. And so this young girl wants to escape, and she wants to go find that famous mountain man father that she's never known. And she wants to prove that she's capable of anything. She's one of my, what do they call them? I don't want to, sort of a kick-ass girl, a sort of a prepubescent assassin. There's this big thing out there in literature of girls just being really powerful, right? And I love those stories that show girls in those positions. And so my girl, it's sort of like a True Grit meets The Secret Garden, but she gets to show her spirit and her grit.
And I like Nara. Is she based on someone that you know?
She is. Goldie is an artist, like my good friend Kathy McGuire, she died of cancer as well about a year after my daughter did. And we were great friends in Woodside, California. And, when I was at some of the worst points of me finishing up this book and having to do rewrites on it, you know, she showed me what real grit was. She came out to Big Sur when I was staying out there, and I needed to do all these edits and settle down, simmer down, and get this stuff done for my agent and get it out before the spring. And she came out, and she had like 3 kinds of cancer. I'm not kidding you. And so she would go out every day for hours, and I would move her chair around, and she said, Dianna, go in there, right? I'm going to be out here painting. And then, you know, she'd be out there for hours sitting on that stool, just painting and painting. And so, I mean, you talk about grit. She was also just the sweetest woman, too. And she was an artist, and she was a Midwesterner. I love Midwesterners. They're just the neatest people. But so a lot of Goldie is going to be based on Kathy McGuire. So
Terrific. Well, we look forward to your book about Goldie. I know you're still struggling with the title, and we so appreciate you joining us today. And I hope we've inspired people to read. But Betty's going to talk, I think, in a minute. She may tell you that she started your book and can't put it down. It was late to meetings and everything because she couldn't put it down either. So, so Dianna, thank you so much.
well, thank you for having me. It's been an absolute joy. I'm going to get on the chat, you guys.
Thank you, Dianna.
Dianna.
So Robin, before I turn it over to you, I want to do a little promotion.
Yes.
We have a very special event next week. Yes. And the special event is that we have the author of Driving Miss Norma. Please sign up for it. It's 1 week from today at the same time. And the co-author is named Rami Little. And the book is a fabulous book that's being turned into a motion picture. And Hilton Head is featured prominently in the book, if I haven't sparked your interest so far. So please get on the WowHe website and sign up for it. And Robin, I'll let you do more promotion. It's been great to see you today.
Good to see you too. And yes, this is going to be next Thursday at 5 o'clock. Again, I'm very excited. I have not read it, but what I love about it says an inspirational story about what really matters at the end of life. So I'm very excited to read it, and I'm very excited that we're going to be interviewing the author, Rami Little. All right. So with that, I'd like to bring in our president. There she is, Betty Hamilton. Hey, Betty. So you started the book, Dianna's book, and you said you couldn't put it down.
Oh my gosh. You know, if I didn't have so many commitments today, I was getting a little antsy because I thought I got to get back home. I got to start reading that book again. Great interview. It really was. Thank you so much. And thank you, Dianna, for being with us. It's an amazing book. And I think one of the very special things about our author series, and this is a credit to Janet as the interviewer, but everybody who participates in pulling these events together for us. But I think one of the very special things is that when you see and hear, it's like this author is sitting in your living room. It actually is giving life to the book. And when I just started the book this morning, and I kept reading. I thought, uh-oh, I've got to get out of here. But seeing Dianna this evening just really brings every character in that book to life. So we're very privileged to have Janet and Robin and Nancy and everybody who pulls these events together for us. Just want to go over a couple of things that are coming up. We, as most of you know, from the very busy emails that you are getting from WowHe these days and the very lengthy pink paper newsletters, don't unsubscribe because you'll never hear from WowHe again if you do. Just bear with us. But we have on November 4th, the Happy Days fundraiser event. Now, you all know about the WowHe Charitable Fund and the grants that we give out. This November 4th is our major fundraiser for this year. So we really need your support for that evening to come there. You can even get takeout meals, but you can bring up to three guests with you. Great fun menu. If you think back to the 50s, 60s, 70s. We've got a wonderful DJ who's going to be playing music from that era. So there'll be lots of dancing, lots of fun. So if you haven't already, you still have time to sign up for that. So I encourage you to do that. And I will look forward to greeting you there on the 4th. The other thing that is coming up, and I don't know where the weeks go, but before you know it, December is going to be here. And our next luncheon will be December 9th at the Sonesta. And it will carry on the resilience theme. We're going to have a fabulous panel. We're going to be talking about how resilience became such a crucial factor in the arts. We've got a speaker who will be representing theater, a speaker from the Beaufort Film Festival who will be talking about film, and then somebody from the roasting room in Bluffton who's going to be talking about music. We all know how the pandemic has seriously affected the arts, and they will be sharing those experiences with us. So 2 big events coming up. I know there are a lot of little things going on in between, but I would love to see you on the 4th at the pavilion at Skull Creek. A beautiful setting. You will see the sunset. And remember, it is in a covered pavilion, so it will be held rain or shine, and plenty of fresh air. So that's all I have for you tonight. Back to Robin and Janet, and thank you so much, ladies.
Thank you, Betty. Once again, thank you for your leadership. I don't have a copy of the book that we just talked about, but I did go on the website and cut out this "You Belong Here Now" by Dianna Rostad. There's a look at the cover. So I have not read it, but I am definitely going to read this book. It sounds fascinating. I want to remind you that Bobby Helbig is our colleague that works directly with co-partnering with Janet Porter to bring on our authors. So if you have any recommendations for authors as we move forward into our next season, we would appreciate you emailing Bobby Helbig, and we want to thank you for her service, and Janet, of course, for her great work. Our next author series, which will be our 18th, will be on November the 11th. And it's Marie Benedict, she is the author of The Personal Librarian. A lot of people know about her. She's very famous, New York Times bestseller author. So we're excited about that. Remember, every one of our editions are videotaped. So please go on the website and take a look. Janet, good to see you. Good job. And did you have anything else you wanted to share?
Yeah, I just wanted to add for everybody, because I think the name Marie Benedict may strike a lot of people as something that they've read. She features a lot of famous women who have not become famous, but have been really instrumental in history. And she wrote an incredible book called The Other Woman in the Room, which is about Hedy Lamarr, who actually, women don't know, was inducted into the Inventors Hall of Fame. She wrote a book called The Other Einstein, about Einstein's wife and how instrumental she was in probably formulating a lot of the theories of relativity, but again, not credited. So many of you have written many other books in probably your book groups that were by Marie Benedict. She may be the best-selling author nationwide that we've had so far. So I hope people will sign up, because
May I chime in for a minute?
Here comes Bobby. She wants to chime in too.
Chime in for a minute. Yes, also her co-author, oh my Lord.
Bobby, go, yeah.
Victoria, her co-author is also going to be joining. So there'll be 2 people
cool.
there as well. And I just finished it yesterday because I couldn't put it down as well. Just fascinating stuff I should have known and didn't.
Great. Well, high five, ladies, and thank you again for joining our 17th edition of the Women's Association of Hilton Head Islands author series, and have a great rest of your week and weekend. It's going to be cooler next week. Really, I think it's going to really feel like fall. So bye, everyone. We'll see you in November. Bye-bye.